What is up, First Round Fantasy fans? Welcome to the First Round Fantasy Podcast. We are doing some off-season coverage here. Yes, fantasy football's over. The NFL season's over. Congratulations to the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. But we are here to talk some off-season stuff because we can't wait to just start having these fantasy football discussions again. I am your host, Jacob Bartley. I am joined by Gabe Maramontes, as always. And, of course, Justin Moorsauce and Joseph Moorsauce in the house as well. What's going on, guys?
Yep. Good Super Bowl.
Back.
Not time for the off season.
I know, right? It's crazy. So we are going to be talking about the big wide receiver free agents during this episode. And we're going to discuss the main ones where we think the best fit for them is. And that's going to be crazy because it really depends, right? Who's the Colts quarterback? That's a huge, thing that could determine where some of these wide receivers go, et cetera. But real quick, anything you guys want to talk about? There's a few things going on in the NFL. We have the Russell Wilson stuff going on, the Carson Wentz stuff going on. Anything stand out to you guys?
The Russell Wilson thing, man. I've talked to a lot of people who have said it's nothing. And listen, it might be nothing. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And sometimes you see a situation like this where it starts out as nothing. And it's nothing, and it's nothing, and then one thing happens, the media happens. Apparently now there's a story that the Seahawks general management is upset with Russ about what he said. Dude, he might. You never know. If someone makes an over-the-top offer, I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but who knows how much longer Pete Carroll has. We could see Russell Wilson out the door in the next year or two. I wouldn't be terribly surprised. I saw a stat where he's been hit like 400 times in 9 years, and Drew Brees in his entire 15 years with the Saints got hit like 320 times. So, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, so my first reaction to that is I don't think it's anything big. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, he portrays himself as like, oh, I'm loyal to the Seahawks no matter what. But the one thing that makes me think differently is I think he sees what's going on with Deshaun Watson and what just happened with Matthew Stafford, and he's like, wait a minute. I thought that I had to stay here and play here for the rest of my career. Maybe that's not the case. And I think maybe he's kind of opening the window a little bit for that opportunity. But otherwise, I don't know, man. I can't see him leaving. Like I could have always seen Stafford leaving Detroit, but I just can't see Russell Wilson leaving the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's definitely different than Stafford, but I mean, I don't know. He hasn't had the say in that team, and it seems like quarterbacks like Russ, quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, at a certain point, it's like, dude, go all in, build this team around me.
Yeah.
I'm taking you to 11 wins, 12 wins every year, and you don't get, they got him Metcalf, they got him Lockett, but no offensive line. Same thing with Rodgers. They go out and draft Jordan Love. They don't get him a wide receiver. So these guys, dude, they got big egos, and their careers don't last forever. And they see Tom Brady getting 7 Super Bowls and Patrick Mahomes coming up. They need to make a push to get another Super Bowl, maybe 2 more before it's all said and done,
I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to say who would ever not want to see this. I do believe that that's a bad situation. And there's one quarterback, and you mentioned high name, high profile, that just can't get moved because he costs too much. Why doesn't Seahawks just flip it for Deshaun Watson and they swap places? They're going to have to pay anyways. They might as well go up and get the same type of quarterback, and they both probably want different situations. And I don't think that any other team is going to be able to offer Wilson plus some picks for Deshaun Watson. That value is pretty good. But that's that's a dream, but maybe something like that.
The Seahawks would be screwing Russell Wilson over if they did that. Yeah. I don't think they would do that to him. But
why?
That's why I don't see
and
it.
The thing is, so Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause. I don't know if Russell Wilson does or not.
I'm sure he has to.
If he doesn't, then he wouldn't have no say. But Deshaun Watson would have to be like, yeah, I'm cool with this. I mean, if I'm Deshaun Watson, that'd be throwing to DK Metcalf. That would be awesome.
Great.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think anything's going to happen this upcoming season, but it could be foreshadowing Wilson out the door at some point. He's still young. I mean, we think that he's old, but him and Stafford, they're still like 32. So they're still young. Real quick, Carson Wentz. There's heavy reports that he might get traded. Do you guys think? What team do you think is the best fit for him?
The Colts.
Did you see that offer was just thrown out for him?
Was that a recent one?
Yeah, it looks like it was around 5 hours ago when it got listed. It's a second round 54th overall, future third, future fourth, and Carson. And I think they've already offered 2 second rounds on top as well. But it's just a bunch of picks for that. So
From who? The Colts?
yeah,
Yeah, I heard.
They're not trying to offer a first.
Well, the report that I saw was that multiple teams are willing to offer a first for Carson Wentz. I don't know, man. This guy really that good? Like, I feel like he would do okay in Indianapolis just because they can get by with a mediocre
and their
quarterback.
offensive line is amazing, so he wouldn't get touched.
Yeah,
you know?
they run the ball. They have some young up and coming receivers. They're built on defense and running. So Carson Wentz sounds like a good fit for them. But are you giving up a first round pick to go out and get Carson? Like, how much worse is it to just go get Teddy Bridgewater? Is there that much of a difference between the two?
Yeah, and you have to pay him for his contract doesn't even kick in until next year, like this upcoming season. So yeah, I mean, unless I'm the Colts, that's a good point. He was an MVP one year, didn't he? He won the MVP one year, right?
No.
The only year they won the Super Bowl, he was injured for it. Nick Foles
he's no.
He was that year. He was in contention for the MVP.
He might have been in the contention before he got hurt. But I mean, come on, he gets hurt. Foles comes out. They win the Super Bowl. That team was a good team, anyways, and arguably Foles was better than him. I don't know. I don't see him on that Stafford tier. He could be. You know, we've seen guys like Tannehill struggle in their original situation, go somewhere else, and then blow up.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, talking about still young, he's 28.
Yeah.
But he's had significant injuries already. So, well, I agree. I wouldn't give up too much for him, to be honest. And look, the Rams are ready to win now. Stafford's not even that expensive, and he only has like 2 years left on his deal, so that wasn't bad for Stafford.
And Stafford's an Iron Man, dude. That guy he plays through everything. Yeah.
Cool. Well, just want to, get the blood pumping, talk a little bit of football before we jump into this wide receiver discussion. So basically, we have a list of what we consider the main wide receivers available this offseason, and then maybe a second tier that we'll get to after we're done with that. And we also have a list of the teams that have cap space. Now, when you'd say, hey, I want Chris Godwin to go to this team, you could say other circumstances that might be attached to that, like, hey, the Colts the Colts acquire Carson Wentz and they sign Chris Godwin, something like that. Like if there's something that it would take, because if you just add Chris Godwin to the Colts and then they just start their rookie from last year, that's probably not going to be a good fit for Chris Godwin. So that's how we'll kind of go about it. So we'll go ahead and start with my man, the dude, Kenny Golladay. He didn't really have a 2020 season. He was banged up all year, played a few games, still looked really good in those games. But I speculate that he sat out intentionally because he knew the Lions weren't going anywhere. He was like, what's the point? My stock can only go down because if I play well, then I'm just proving what I've been doing the past couple of years. If I play badly or get injured again, it hurts my contract next year. So I think Kenny Golladay purposely sat out, just said he wasn't good to go all year. And it's probably a smart move. So, and I don't think he's going back to the Lions after Stafford leaving. They could franchise tag him, but I'll go ahead and start with you, Gabe. Where do you see Kenny Golladay ending up this offseason?
Oh, man. Well, that's a good question. To be quite honest with you, the first thing I really did was I looked at teams that clearly need help at the wide receiver position. And a few that came to mind right off the bat were the Ravens, both teams in New York, the Jets and the Giants. I believe the Raiders could upgrade a few players, especially with Tyrell Williams, not relevant last year, and he's gone officially now. And also the Philadelphia Eagles. With that being said, yeah, Detroit's in a full rebuild, I believe, dishing out Stafford, bringing in Goff. I think there's a lot of moving parts here. New head coach. I don't think they're willing to franchise Kenny Golladay. I mean, the guy only played him 5 games last season. So it's highly unlikely that he sticks around in Detroit. With that being said, I don't know. Probably somewhere like New York. I could see him going. Any one of those two teams I might need it. But the only thing is, a lot of these names that we're going to talk about, they probably want to go to contenders. those teams that I just mentioned, other than the Ravens, they're not contenders. So they're either going to be looking for money or they're going to be looking to playing for a contender.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like these guys, do they want to sign with the Jets and just get a max contract? They don't even care.
I mean, look at Deshaun Watson. We could see the ultimate pairing. That's where his
do they want to go and win a championship? I think today's culture with sports, like most athletes want to win championships. And that's where, if they can direct where they go, I think that's kind of where they're going to be leaning towards. But every guy's going to be different, right? Yeah. So what was your final team, or what did you think?
Man, to be honest, I'm going to hand it off to Joe because, like I said, it's so up in the air. I could go with either of those teams in New York. I mean, imagine a Deshaun Watson trade and then a Kenny Golladay signing for the New York Jets. That's just the absolute rebuild that you.
I thought of that too. I think that would be a good move if that ends up happening.
We'll know a lot more as we get closer.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be these teams with cap space only. To be honest, it could be a trade scenario. So if you think there's a team not on this list, like the Raiders, who can maneuver a trade, then that could work too.
Yeah, and also teams can always, like Gabe said, the Raiders went out and waived Tyrell Williams. We're going to start to see a lot of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys are going to start to get waived. I don't know how
sign-in trades work in the NFL. I don't know if that's a thing or not. Or can they franchise tag somebody and then trade them?
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I think like you tag them and then you can get something weird, where teams end up getting a pick or something out of it. It's usually not player for player. It's like pick for player, but
yeah. All right, Joe. Well, where do you see, and since we're a fantasy show, I kind of want to focus on like what's the best ideal fantasy situation for these players. So for Kenny Golladay, what do you see that as?
So ideally, what I want to see, kind of my dark horse, where I think this could happen, maybe unlikely, but I think that Bill Belichick is going to be kind of upset this year. And I think he wants to get back to the playoffs and prove that he can do it without Brady. Now, Cam Newton wasn't the fit, right? My thinking is that they try to find a way to get a quarterback. Maybe that's Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see who it is, but they're going to get a quarterback. And I could see Golladay following Patricia over to the Patriots and being that star wide receiver, because that's really what they're missing over there in New England. Their defense was pretty decent. They have a couple running backs that can do stuff. They need a quarterback and a wide receiver. They need their Brady and Moss or whoever, whatever you want to say. And obviously Jimmy and Golladay aren't Brady and Moss, but under Belichick, they can be successful pairing. But at the end of the day, guys, I'm going to go with the safe pick. I think the Lions are going to franchise tag him. I don't think they're going to let him walk out of the door for free. I don't, maybe they end up, like you said, tagging him and then trading him to somewhere and getting some value. But Kenny Golladay is a stud, and he's not that old. And it's almost like what we saw the Bengals do with AJ Green, but much younger. They would not let AJ Green go.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. The guy said he wanted out. He wanted to go play for a contender. He wanted this. No. We're not trading you. Unless we get a first-round pick, we're not trading you.
That's a fair point. Like, why let a star wide receiver go? Just lose him for nothing.
And listen, they don't have Stafford. But Golladay is a nice piece to have around with Goff.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's not like they got a complete bum at quarterback.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that they're going to go ahead and franchise tag him. We'll see him in the Lions uniform next year. And I think he'll play, and he's going to surprise a lot of people. He'll probably end up falling. People are going to think, oh, no Stafford, and he missed all last season. And I think he's going to end up surprising people and doing this year what we thought he was going to do last year.
Yeah, that's probably a safe bet. And I will say, honestly, for most of these, other than Juju and Allen Robinson, I think most of these guys are going to go back to the teams they were already on, to be honest, because it's just sometimes it's easier. They want to stay there. They can sign them even if they're over the cap. They can still re-sign their own guys, things like that. So, Justin, what about you, man? Do you see a different scenario for Golladay?
I do. If they franchise tag him, I don't think he wants to stay there, but that's an option. But I see him going to the Jets. The reason I say that is because we know the Jets as pretty much the bottom feeders of the league. Golladay had a bad year, couldn't stay healthy, didn't get the receptions, the touchdowns he normally does. So he wants to get paid. He's in the prime of his career, basically. And this is where it goes back to Gabe. I want to win a title. Yeah, but you have your agent saying, "Let's get paid," and in a couple of years,
this is his one big contract.
That's how it is. And the NFL, your career is a little shorter than the NBA. So I think the Jets are going to pay up to get this guy because the market's a little bit different for him. If he played a full year and he did the normal Kenny G thing, then we're talking a different game. But
yeah,
I think they can get him a little cheaper, but still pricey. That's why.
Yeah.
But again, I'm also leaning towards he's going to get franchise tag and unfortunately stay there, which will still be a good fantasy situation, like you said, with Goff and Galladay. But
their defense is bad too, so they're just going to be shootouts and stuff.
Stay
from behind.
And Goff's trying to prove himself, so
yeah. I mean, honestly, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Goff sucks." I don't think that's the case. I don't think that was terrible for 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff.
Yeah. They got a steal.
I know.
They got Rams got screwed.
They definitely did. Now, look, I would love – I mean, actually, he wouldn't be a good fit for my 49ers, but I still would love to see Kenny Galladay in a 49ers jersey. Not going to happen, though. But, I think the most likely scenario is what Justin's saying with the Jets because they're going to be able to pay him more. And then if you bring in Kenny Galladay to the Jets, that looks way more appealing to a potential quarterback in the future. Somebody like Deshaun Watson, waiving the trade clause, things like that. But I like what you said, Joe, about the Patriots. I mean, look, let's say they bring in Carson Wentz or they bring in
Jimmy.
I think that's very likely. If the Niners move on from Jimmy, Bill Belichick's bringing him back, dude. And they're going to be good. Like they're not going to win the division and go to the AFC Championship, but they're both going to be solid. Him going there, so I think that's.
Hold on, I will say this one last thing. Scott Thompson, he's a Yahoo writer for fantasy football. He's really good on market value, and I've just kind of tidbitted all of these guys' anticipated market value going into free agency, and I can shut down the Patriots right away because they're not known for paying people money. And Kenny Galladay.
Well, they did say they were going to be uncharacteristically aggressive this offseason.
Yeah, Gabe. I think seeing Brady go to Tampa, winning that Super Bowl, that stings. That stings. Had Brady went to Tampa, made it to the playoffs, whatever, and the Patriots done their normal thing, made it to the playoffs, and they both would have knocked out in the first round, whatever. I don't think Belichick does a damn thing. Like, he just plays it the same way. But now Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are sitting there like, dude, we let him walk out the door. We pushed him out. We pushed Jimmy out. Jimmy just went to a Super Bowl. Brady's won a Super Bowl. And who did we have? Cam Newton? This is the best we got?
Dude, they have no playmakers.
None.
Look, we're going to be talking about another wide receiver in a little bit who I think is cheaper. Kenny Galladay is looking at like $18 million.
He's probably going to be the highest paid on this list.
Exactly.
I mean,
so
Chris
I think
Godwin,
there are cheaper options that we're going to mention.
There's some other
Patriots are probably going to go after. That's all.
Yeah, possibly. But I think they're going to try to fix quarterback. They have to try to fix wide receiver.
Yeah. And my biggest thing for Kenny Galladay being the fit is he just played with Matt Patricia the last 2 or 3 years in Detroit. Patricia's back as I know it's the defensive coordinator, but he's back. A lot of guys go with their coach.
I'm not sure anyone's gonna want to sign with the Patriots if Newton's under helm. Like
dude,
he's gone. He's gone.
Honestly, Newton's maybe a backup position.
Do we know? We're speculating.
Yeah, no. They already said they're going for another quarterback.
I mean, I guess we're speculating, but do you really think they're going to re-sign him? No way.
No, I heard a report straight up. Cam Newton's time in New England is over. It's done. Yeah.
Dude, if Robert Griffin III can get a backup spot, maybe Cam Newton can.
Yeah.
It's the ego thing with Cam. Can you settle for a backup spot?
That's true. All right, well, let's go to this next guy on this list. Not maybe as highly coveted, but he had a great season last year, and that's Corey Davis. So this guy, his best season of his career, and the Titans have not re-signed him yet, and he could resign with somebody else. They might resign him. I'll go ahead and start this one. I think at the end of the day, he's back with the Titans because you have your superstar in AJ Brown, but you can't just do it with one guy. I mean, you got to have some supporting cast around him to pick up the slack when he's injured or when he's being guarded heavily. So I think at the end of the day, he's back with the Titans. I'll go to you first, Justin. Where do you see Corey Davis possibly ending up?
to keep it fantasy relevant, I think that he's a perfect name and perfect style to go to the Packers because we hear
Ooh,
nonstop
I didn't think
they
about that.
need another wide receiver.
Yeah.
Lazard is tight. We like Lazard, but his health and he's just not that guy. And what's that? MSV?
Dang, that's a good one, Justin.
He's just who he is, and we saw
Oh, MBS. Yeah.
we finally saw Corey Davis become who we thought he was, but he's not going to get top dollar like some of these other names are.
No,
I think he'd be a perfect number 2 to just say, hey, if you want to abuse the pass game and try to stop Devontae, I'm going to blow up on the other side against you. And that's just like a big body, a perfect name. And he's also that streaky guy who can catch a long ball too. So ideally, I want to see him go there, but I think realistically, a re-sign and running it back might be good because they have a nice tandem over there too.
Yeah, for sure. I would love that. I mean, we for years, man, we're always like, who's the number 2 in Green Bay? And even when it was Jordy Nelson, like Jordy Nelson left, Devontae Adams came up. They weren't never like great together, you know. So there's never been like a prominent number 2 there. Just guys
Cobb, Jacob, for a year. So
yeah, that's true. Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb were really good.
But that
together.
was years ago.
Yeah. I think since then we're like, who's going to be the Randall Cobb to his Jordy Nelson?
Yeah.
So that would be great. How about you, Gabe? Do you have any other scenario for Corey Davis?
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing this one out there. I'd like to see him go to the Baltimore Ravens. I know it's not the sexiest pick. I mean, you got a running quarterback.
They need another wide receiver, though.
Yeah, the only other thing that I can think of is exactly that. They need another wide receiver. Marquise Brown, he wasn't exactly great last year, but he came on strong towards the end of the season, and he's developing, of course. And I know that we all know that the Ravens really like to run, and Corey Davis, he said in multiple tweets that he loves to run block. So I don't know. That was just kind of like a speculative pick for me. And again, according to Scott Thompson, his market value is right around 9 to 10 million is what he's going to expect on the market.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier, Gabe, that the Patriots are probably going to go cheaper route. And listen, I said Kenny Golladay is probably going to re-sign with the Lions. At the end of the day, they're going to franchise him. So I think the Patriots are going to miss on Kenny Golladay. And I see Corey Davis as a kind of ideal, like you said, cheaper name that can instantly become their number 1. I don't see him going back to the Titans whatsoever. Listen, the Titans have A.J. Brown. He is the number 1 guy. Okay? And then they have Humphreys, who they brought in as their number 3 guy. And I think they're going to go and draft somebody to be their number 2 guy because teams like that, they're pricey. They're expensive. They need to re-sign guys on the defense. They have an expensive running back. You can't afford everybody, you know? So Corey Davis is awesome. And yeah, he blew up and it's a feel-good story that we've been waiting for him to do it for 4 or 5 years. And he finally did it. But I don't see him going back there. I think the realistic situations are either the Patriots, or I could also see him going to the Jaguars to go play with their new rookie quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, because the Jaguars don't really have a number 1 either. They're sitting there. They have a couple of number 2s, number 3s, no real number 1. If you believe
DJ Chark should be their number 1.
Yeah, but is he a true number 1? I like him.
I mean, dude, I
think he's a 1A, 1B.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying he should be, but he hasn't had consistent quarterback play.
Justin said it. Yeah, quarterback issue.
Well, listen, if you have Shark, you have Corey Davis, and you have Laviska, that's your 1, 2, 3. Put them however you want them, but look at what the Bengals did with Joe Burrow, right? They had Boyd, they had AJ Green. They still went out and got Higgins. You have a young quarterback like that, you need to give him multiple options so that he has options on the field. You can't just rely on Shark, who's missed some games with injuries. You can't rely on Laviska, who's missed some games with injuries and was pretty inconsistent his first year. But you have all 3 of them, you're looking in a better spot. So I see Jaguars and Patriots as the potential landing spots with the Jets if they miss out on some bigger name fish.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I you kind of changed my mind on whether he'd go back there or not because you're right. They do, and look, they're gonna pay AJ Brown when the day comes, and they need to make sure they're able to. So, that's a fair point. But I do think. I mean, I still think there's a possibility. I mean, if he takes, I don't know what his market value is going to be. Like, is he going to be heavily sought after, or does he just want to stay there? So we'll see what ends up happening. And Gabe, of course, I'm going to go to you first with this one, man. We have Juju Smith-Schuster. I believe he's a restricted free agent. They can franchise him, but everybody is saying they're going to let him walk. They have no cap space, no nothing. They're kind of maxed out there. So where do you see your man Juju Smith-Schuster going?
This Pittsburgh Steelers are literally in like the twilight of whatever they're trying to do. Their defense is magnificent. Ben Roethlisberger is so, but if they're going to win with him, they need to do it absolutely right now. So I think ultimately they're going to try to surround him with as many weapons as possible like they did last year. That means franchising Juju Smith-Schuster. From an envious standpoint, he's got to go to Las Vegas, baby. Like that is the spot. Is it fantasy appetizing? No, Joe and I were talking about this earlier. It's not really fantasy appetizing because you have a person in Derek Carr who doesn't really throw a lot to the wide receiver. He throws to Darren Waller. Now, sure, Nelson Aguilar last year, people are saying that because he's out the door in Las Vegas, Juju Smith-Schuster can come in and eat those targets. They weren't necessarily the greatest targets. I will say this. There were people out there starting Aguilar in their fantasy lineups, in the fantasy playoffs and towards the end of the fantasy playoffs or fantasy regular season. I just don't think the volume's always going to be there to keep him relevant as a fantasy wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar finished as the wide receiver 36 on the year. So pure fanboy, Oakland Raiders. Logistically speaking, I think he stays in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean, I guess that makes sense if they want to win now. But dude, when they franchise tag these guys, like I don't know what the exact numbers are for some of these high-end receivers, but like
expensive.
If they franchise tag Dak Prescott, the Cowboys, right? It's like $35 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's like money out of the owner's pocket. So it's not as easy as we think franchise tagging, So it's like those guys you have to do. And maybe they see Juju as that guy. He's so young. He's like his
He's
birthday.
Only 24.
When was he born?
Yeah.
24. I knew he was young, though. He's 23, young. 24. Yeah. So, I mean,
his market value, according to Scott Thompson, too, is right up there. It's like 16, 17 million. So, same type of money as Kenny Galladay.
We all fantasized about Juju being the next superstar after Antonio Brown left, but it never happened. And I think we realized this past year that he's a great number 2 option on a team. And for me, and maybe even a number 1, I think if he leaves Pittsburgh, I mean, this would be kind of sucky because they're in the same division, but he could go to the Baltimore Ravens. Look, Lamar Jackson needs people to throw to. Look, it's not just that he's not the best thrower. It's that, look, Marquise Brown is inconsistent. And I think if you need to give this man somebody else to throw to, somebody he can throw to in the middle, and I think Juju going there, that would be a kind of FU to the Steelers in a way. But look, I don't know how expensive he's going to be. They do have
16, 17 million.
They do have some cap space. So, and I think fantasy wise, he would flourish there. So I would go with the Baltimore Ravens. Got any differing thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I just first off, I hate the Ravens for him. I think Lamar Jackson sucks at throwing the ball. I think that kills his value. And listen, the problem with Lamar Jackson is similar to the problem as Derek Carr. And like Gabe said, we talked about this. They don't look at the wide receiver, so it doesn't matter who you get them there. They're going to focus on their running backs, their tight ends. That's their main focus. So it's unfortunate, but I actually have a spot that I think Juju's going to end up, and I think that's with Robert Saleh, Deshaun Watson, and the New York Football Jets. And I think that this is their target more than Kenny Galladay because I think Juju is a lot more gettable. I think he matches that age range very good. Deshaun Watson needs himself a number 1 guy.
They're like the same age, right?
Yeah, and Juju is fast.
Juju would light it up if that happened.
Yeah, and he's fast like Fuller. We've seen Fuller have a ton of success with Deshaun Watson. I think that Juju's going to slot in there. They already have some other young guys that they brought in at wide receiver, but there's really nobody to compete with for that number 1 spot. And I think Juju, if we've learned anything about this guy over the last year with his TikTok dances, and he's very egotistical. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying he's full of himself, right? And the guy knows and thinks that he can be a number 1. And I talked to Gabe about this back in week 2. I said he might get traded to the Raiders. But now that I'm looking at the Raiders, I just don't think that they're going to – I don't know. I think you have bigger issues than a wide receiver. So I think if the Raiders go out and try to get Juju, it's a mistake. It's asset management mistake because you need defense. Your wide receivers are kind of up-and-coming young guys. You have Ruggs, you have Renfro, you have Edwards, you have Waller, you have Jacobs, you have pieces on the offense. So either you believe in Carr or you don't, because if it's getting Carr another wide receiver, the problem is Carr. So either you get rid of Carr or you go and fill out the defense because their defense sucks. They gave up leads to Miami, leads to the Chargers. These weren't the best teams.
Lost to the Jets.
They were right there with a chance to go to the playoffs. We all thought they were going to go to the playoffs while they're beating up the Kansas City Chiefs, the only team that could consistently compete with them. So I don't know. I don't see the Raiders as much as it's kind of Juju in the black and silver. Like, yeah, it makes
Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds right, but I see him in New York. He's a big ego. It makes a lot of sense for him to end up in New York where he's featured with Saleh, with Watson, and with a good offense. That's not a bad offense by any means with those two.
I'll piggyback off of what Joe said really quick. Like, I get it. We're all speculating that if Deshaun Watson goes to New York, of course, any one of these guys is a good fit there, right?
Yeah.
And Juju's a perfect fit. Looking at the Raiders, though, I mean, you said everything right. The only thing that I could kind of consider it is if we're not looking at it from like a fantasy perspective. Sure, Juju is super egotistical. He's also a really good football player, except at being a number one wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He's been a good number two wide receiver. He plays hard. He does the heavy blocking. He does the heavy lifting on runs and schemes and things of that nature. So I think if you line him up alongside someone like Ruggs, like up-and-comer like Renfro in the slot, and another up-and-comer like Bryan Edwards, I mean, yeah, they could do a lot more work on defense, but I don't think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility.
Listen, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility either, because I think that Gruden is like, just give me more fucking offensive pieces and I'm going to make it happen. You might score 30, but I'm going to score 40. That's kind of the mentality, but I don't think it's a smart mentality. And I think remind me, who's your guys' GM, Mayock? I think he needs to talk him out of it and say, dude, we need defenders. Our defense is, we got, like the Niners were missing Bosa. I was talking to my buddy, he's a Raiders fan. Niners were missing Bosa. We lost Buckner. We didn't have D Ford all season. We didn't have a defensive line. And we still had like 10 more sacks than the Raiders. And the Raiders are a team that just went out and drafted 2 defensive guys in the top 10 the last 2 years in a row. And they're not getting sacks. So you need to fill out that defense.
Most definitely. They usually do their work in the draft, but it's proven to not be too satisfactory. So, yeah, they can probably spend some money in the free agency.
Yeah. That is a fair point. I'm not choosing the Raiders for any of these other wide receivers the rest of the show. But, Justin, do you see a different fate for Juju Smith-Schuster?
I sure do.
This is the final one, Gabe. This is where he's going.
I think he wants to stay in Pittsburgh, but the money doesn't work for him. And you talked about a team that needs playmaking and the ego works, and that's the Patriots. If they're going to make a splash, they can – This is like a money tier up of Corey Davis. I'm not saying he's better or worse. I'm saying the name alone brings that. So you look at their wide receiver core last year, and it had some nice flashes, but they don't have anybody that's our one going forward, no doubt about it. And why not put him over there? You pair him with a new quarterback, hopefully, and maybe Belichick can have a good luck with another Steeler or wide receiver, and it could be a good match. But he's going to try to get paid. I don't think the market's going to pay him. And then that's the Patriots market right there, where they get that guy who thinks he's valued a little bit more and gives them just a little bit less.
Yeah, I think with Juju, like we talked about the motivation for these guys, maybe Juju's motivation is like, I want to be the number one wherever I go. And that could be the Jets. That could be the Patriots.
To be fair, he hasn't had the chance to prove that he can or cannot to a full extent.
Yeah.
Because we lost Roethlisberger, and then this year they had Chase Claypool. They had too many options. It's not necessarily a flack on him. I mean, go look at his numbers,
not at all.
Dude.
And for a while, they were all 3 performing. For
a
game stretch. Yeah,
I used him in the fantasy playoffs and leading up to the fantasy playoffs, and he was killing it. He was a 20-point guy every week. It wasn't that he had a 4-week stretch where he just wasn't that great. But aside from that, he was really solid, and he was getting 13, 12 catches some games. So,
but that was also under a 50, 55 attempt Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
So it's a little inflated. But no, I think that's the Patriots. He can be the number one. He can highlight himself and get paid. And they need to get some offensive weapons because they're just lackluster over there. So why not Juju?
I could definitely see that. I could see it.
It seems like we all agree that the Patriots are going to make some sort of splash. Right? It's just about how much they're willing to spend. As Gabe mentions, they haven't historically spent money to bring in those big name wide receivers unless they're doing it through trade and they're a short-term stop. Most of their wide receivers that have stayed long-term have been homegrown products. So we'll see.
What's the price point on Juju, Gabe? What's your boy say about Juju?
He's the same as Kenny Golladay, right around 16 million. And that's like that. He's factoring in a 5-year max contract, which a lot of these players are trying to get 4 or 5 years, 60 to 80 million.
I think that's a bit high, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, on to Justin's main guy, Allen Robinson. I'll go to you first, Justin. I don't think he's going to end up on the Vikings, man. Sorry, but where do you think Allen Robinson is going to end up this offseason? And this is one guy I'm telling you who's not going back to the Bears. And his main motivation, in my opinion, is to play with a great quarterback and compete in some playoff games. I think he's been paid big already. I think he wants to win some games.
Yeah, this is the time to get paid or time to win, and you said he's time to win, and that's what makes it so hard because all things considered, if they just had a quarterback I can know and trust, the Colts would be ideal for him. They're a dink and dime. Yeah, they just want to, and Allen Robinson is that beautiful like PPR. I'm catching it, getting 110 yards, touchdown 2. He's a safety blanket wide receiver, which is pretty good to have, but I could still see him signing with the Colts because they can sell him on the defense and the run game. And if he can just be that number one, which he is, then beautiful. But I kind of also see him going to the Dolphins because they have some play in that division too. And if
favorite team,
if that whole Tua Deshaun Watson things goes down, even more of a reason for him to go to the Dolphins. But I can't decide Colts or Dolphins, but I feel one of them too.
The funniest thing is, I had those two teams. That was it. My mentality was if the Colts go out and get Wentz, they're gonna go out and try to get him, and kind of finish off that pairing. You have Michael Pittman Jr., but he hasn't established himself yet. You've got some other young guys. Nobody's really taking that leap forward. T.Y. Hilton's likely out the door. You go and get Allen Robinson. He's a great fit with Carson Wentz. But part of me said, he's going to end up back in Florida. He played in Jacksonville for a lot of years, right? And what do we know? We know that Miami was the best defense or top 2-3 defense in the league last year. But we know that their wide receivers, Devontae Parker, ended up getting banged up. Preston Williams ended up getting banged up. They were throwing the ball to like 5-6 different guys, and none of them were that great. So why not go get yourself an Allen Robinson? I think they're ahead of the curve with where we expected them to be, and Allen Robinson kind of pushes them forward. So I like both of those. I was on the money. I agree.
Hey, is there any chance he goes back to Jacksonville? Probably not. But
not a chance.
No, he wants to compete right away. I mean,
well,
they'll be good.
I will say this. Here's my actually, guys. Again, I'll say his name one more time because I feel like it's plagiarism sometimes if I say it without mentioning his name. According to Scott Thompson, he is the highest valued wide receiver on the market. He's looking at about 20 million. I mean, this guy's coming off 102 catches, 1,250 yards, and 6 touchdowns. 2 years ago, I remember I didn't go to the draft. A lot of you guys did. And I remember that was one of the first times I met Justin here. I had known you guys for obviously a long time. And you guys were roasting Justin for picking this guy up so early. And that was 2 seasons ago. He's been solid for 2 straight seasons now. I had a few shares of him this season, and he was one of my most consistent players. And that was, guess what? With Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have the best options. He was on CBS Sports Talk Radio like 2 days ago, and he was on record going as saying he has not ruled out returning to the Bears or returning to Jacksonville. He's happy open to it. He's not burning any bridges.
Well, the guy wants to get paid. That's the best way to get paid. Is you don't
they're
burn
the
bridges.
highest valued wide
I
receiver on the
think
market.
Jacksonville's
Yeah,
a possibility, man. Because
Jacksonville's got $70 million. Yeah, I'm open to
No.
it. You know, wouldn't you
Right?
be?
Like, who cares, right?
I don't think Jacksonville, because that team just needs other. They're awful. They have. If I look at that team, I have a receiver, I have a running back. Let's go fix defense and offensive line. I don't think they're blowing up for a wide receiver at all.
Yeah, he's just a little too old for the timeline. I could see them going and getting a wide receiver, but just I don't know. He's not a great. You never know. They might just give their rookie a blanket. But Jacob, I was going to ask you too. You said he's not going back to the Bears. I wasn't sure, but it sounds like they've clarified he is up. I've heard that the Bears are in talks to get Wentz also, and it's kind of between the Bears and the Colts at this point. I could see.
So there was controversy earlier on this past season where Allen Robinson, something with his Twitter, where he removed all things Bears off his Twitter, and he made some remarks and implying that he wasn't happy there. So that's why I just think that
he was going through a mid-season crisis. Everybody,
I thought that was. I thought he wanted a long-term contract, and they told him basically we'll talk after the season.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, though. What if he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll see," and he just walks? You know, like
could be.
I think Justin's right about the Colts. I think the Colts, because the Colts are going to address their quarterback situation. I mean, whether it's maybe it's resigning Jacoby Brissett, whatever, or maybe it's letting their rookie play, and who knows, maybe he's really good. Or they bring in Carson Wentz. Whatever the case is, I think he can get paid however much he needs to get paid, and he can compete right away. Because you're not going to go to a losing situation if you're in his shoes at that point in his career. So
yeah,
I definitely think that would be a good option. But crazy scenario, what if the Bucs do not re-sign Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown? They could sign Allen Robinson.
Oh yeah,
that would be crazy. But
I don't think they want that though. Him and Mike.
I think they'd rather sign a bunch of pieces to give them more depth rather than just add Allen Robinson. You know.
Yeah.
I will tell you this: I'm trolling the Reddit Chicago Bears forums, and a lot of them are saying it doesn't matter what he wants. Either we sign him or we franchise him. So. He might just stick to the Bears, but for fantasy reasons, it seem like awesome.
Franchise tag is BS, to be honest. In my opinion,
come over here this way.
Let me also
see you if you come over here.
Let me also correct the record.
Cut that part out, Jacob. My bad. I thought I was muted.
Let me correct the record, Gabe. They didn't troll me because I drafted him early. They just trolled me for drafting him. I picked him up in the 9th and the 10th. Okay, that's how you win leagues right there. Allen Robinson, I love you, my man. You're the best.
Well, I am forever on board with your,
And guys, just one thing. Money, yes, sure. These guys are vets. They want to win. Okay, $18 million playing for Kansas City is just as good as $20 million playing for the Jets. But $10 million playing for Kansas City is not worth $20 million playing for the Jets. Mm-hmm. These guys are going to go where the money is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But it just comes down to, yes, if I have to take a few million pay cut to go where I want to go, I'll do it, you know. So, and things like state taxes and stuff like that, so.
That is a great point. All right, so arguably, or Gabe, did you have any predictions for Allen Robinson?
No, I'm good.
You don't think where he? You don't have
I think he probably stays with the Bears.
Choose one for each receiver.
Just throw out a team.
I think he stays with the Bears, probably on a franchise tag, or he signs big with Jacksonville.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Totally speculation, though.
The franchise tag is BS, and it's just boring. They stay there. They can leave again next year. All right, so the last big name on this list, in my opinion, is Chris Godwin. He is a restricted free agent as well. They could franchise tag him, but it's interesting. They just won a Super Bowl. Like they have the right pieces in place. Do they want to bring everybody back and run it back again? I mean, they're probably not going to bring Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin back, but I'm assuming their main priority on offense would be Chris Godwin. I'll go to you first, Joe. Where do you think this is going to end up for Godwin?
So I actually think that they're more likely to bring back Fournette and Antonio Brown instead of Godwin because Godwin is he's young. He's never been paid, right? He wants to go out and get that paycheck. So I'm not ruling it out. I think there's a possibility that he and, they all say, fuck it, let's go back with Brady and let's win another one. But I see him as actually a really good fit for Washington. And the reason I say that is just that Washington has some good pieces over there already. But, who's their number one? Scary Terry? Godwin is kind of the little dink and dunk that Justin likes to say. We talked about it when we were coming into the season. Mike Evans was the deep bomb. Godwin was kind of a 10, 15-yard guy. And that's kind of McLaurin. McLaurin's that deep bomb guy. F1, Scary Terry, he busts out. Well, they don't really have a guy that does that. And Washington, they exceeded expectations last year. And now they have Gibson. They have Scary Terry. They have some other guys. Why not bring in a guy like Godwin who's established, who just won a Super Bowl, who's going to be perfect with Ron Rivera in that offense? I like him there. So from a fantasy standpoint and from maybe even a real life standpoint, I think Washington makes a ton of sense to go out and get a guy like Godwin.
That is a possibility. I'm just curious. That guy who played, I forget his name, who started quarterback in the playoff game, who didn't play bad. They re-signed him. So who knows what they're going to do at the quarterback position? Like let him play, him and Alex Smith. Like that. Maybe they.
Oh, that dude! I know who you're talking about. I didn't watch the game, but my uncle was texting me the whole time, and what was his name? Because they were like, "Oh, it's his time."
Like Taylor Henke.
Was it? Like
yeah, but I mean, I think it would be smart for Washington to pick up one of these guys.
Yeah,
it's because we don't even know who is the second receiver on that team. We can't even J.D. McKissick because basically think of who it is.
They drafted some kid named like Sims, and he started to come on at the end of the season.
At the end of the season, yeah.
Steven Sims, and then Antonio Gandy Golden. I remember Gabe was loving on him last offseason. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong there, but
Antonio Gibson?
No. Antonio Gandy Golden. Somebody was hyping him up. Maybe not you. Somebody I know, but
maybe it was me joking around. But Gabe, what about you, man? Where do you see Chris Godwin going?
We all have shot our shot for the New England Patriots. This is my shot. It's Chris Godwin, baby.
Dude, taking him away from Tom Brady?
That's a big
I mean, hey, it's the perfect devil's advocate, right? The Patriots I finally looked it up. They have $60 million in cap space. Chris Godwin is anticipated to he's anticipated to get somewhere around $17 million. I just think it fits. I don't really see it's highly unlikely that the Buccaneers franchise tag him. Antonio Brown is a much cheaper option at this point in his career, as opposed to someone that they're going to have to really pay up for like Chris Godwin. So I don't think he's staying in Tampa Bay. I think he's going to go out and get paid. And what better place to go than New England? They've tried drafting wide receivers in the past to kind of improve that area, and it just hasn't panned out for them. So I think it's time for them to pay up. Like we've all been saying, Jacob said that they're going to uncharacteristically spend this season, and Joe and Justin mentioned it as well. I think the guy, however, is Chris Godwin. So I'd like to see him in New England.
One thing to note, they won a Super Bowl. Chris Godwin had 2 receptions, 9 yards that game. He didn't do anything. Antonio Brown had 5 catches, 22 yards, a touchdown.
Maybe he wants
way more involved.
Maybe he wants to play with somebody like Jameis Winston again. Not a guy who throws a lot of picks, but just somebody who is going to help his game more,
Yeah. Well, I think Godwin's going to want to go somewhere else too, because there's way too many mouths to feed. Gronkowski's coming back. Mike Evans is coming back. That's not changing.
And if we're saying, he wants to win a Super Bowl, he's already done it. So,
and Joe said it right. The dude's young and he's getting paid, so he's going to go out and get money. They're not going to pay him in Tampa.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Justin, where is Chris Godwin going, man?
This is the hardest one, and I'll tell you why. If I'm the Bucs, I want to keep the band together, but for all the reasons you stated, that's just not happening. I don't think Washington's a beautiful, beautiful place for him to land. I don't think so, though. I look, and you mentioned it. You kind of stole the thunder. I was going to drop the Jameis Winston reunion over in Saints, but their cap situation.
Oh yeah, no way.
I don't think they can get any free agent over there at any sort of large deal. So I look down the list, and I kind of want to see him with the Chargers, but Keenan Allen lines up at the slot, and it's just not a good mix. There's no right answer for me, and I had to stick with the Raiders because they have a need for wide receiver, And if they think Ruggs is going to be that streaker, I don't think Aguilar is the future over there. I don't think
He's gone.
Renfro is the future over there. So why not give a streaker in Ruggs and a little slot guy in Godwin and have a full-rounded offense with Waller filling all those gaps? I don't like any of these, to be honest. I think wherever he ends up, it's going to be odd, but that's where I could see him go to the Giants too, just aside. This was the most difficult one for me. But I say at the end of the day, all the receivers, you're going to see all of them get signed, and then he's kind of going to be left alone because he hits that. Your name carries a lot of value, but your stats with Brady just didn't make you look good.
But his season before that was insane.
That's what I'm saying. So that's where I think the Raiders can slide in, get a nice fit for a little cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to work it out somehow, maneuver some money around, things like that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, he's back with the Bucs somehow. That's what I think. But now that I'm thinking about this, what if he just hops over to Jacksonville? He's young. And this is not like Allen Robinson going to Jacksonville. This is a young guy. Chris Godwin's around 24 years old as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He gets to play. And look, Trevor Lawrence, right? Like this is not like going to any random rookie quarterback. Mm-hmm. This is guys the biggest, highly coveted prospect since Andrew Luck, like maybe even bigger than that at this time. So look, if you could go there, you already won a Super Bowl, help this guy develop. I think that would be a great fit, and he gets paid his max contract.
Yeah,
I think that could work, and he gets to stay in the state. And I believe they have no state taxes.
Yeah, no Florida income tax. Jacob, I think that's a good point. If the Jaguars decide let's ball out and pick one of these guys, and we're going to offer him max money, Chris Godwin makes the most sense, I think, out of all those guys.
Awesome. Well, okay, so the rest of the list, I think there are some important names, but I'll basically
hold up. You disrespected Will Fuller, man.
Okay.
You said that I'm not even lying. I think he's the best player on this entire list. Personally, I think he's the best player on this entire list. When he's healthy, he's the best player on this list. Listen. The PEDs, that was so that he would stay healthy. The guy's been banged up. When he's played, he's produced.
This is also a different scenario because if he just came out of this season, no steroid controversy, right? Performing the way he did, his free agency market would be way higher. So now he's like, every team's not going to be dying to sign him, right? So I'll go to you first, Joe, with Will Fuller. And then for the rest of us, I want to wrap this up under an hour here. Like, look at the rest of those names. And is there any scenario that really stands out to you that you want for one of those players on one of those teams? But Joe, for Will Fuller, like what scenario do you see working out for him this offseason?
So I know the Packers don't have money, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And the Packers were interested in getting him at the deadline.
To trade for him.
Yeah, they did. And they'll clear up some money, dude. These guys have a way, man.
They're losing two running backs pretty much.
There's always a way to get some money cleared up. You got to look through the roster. You got to find out guys restructure.
You can make trades too. Restructure trades.
People restructure. Guys get waived. It happens. They're going to end up clearing up just enough money. Listen, the Green Bay Packers know that they need to go out and get Aaron Rodgers a Super Bowl. Like, this is it. You either win with him next year or he's leaving. That's just a fact. The guy's not happy. He's been pissed off. They went and got Jordan Love. They didn't get him a wide receiver, and it showed. Devonta Adams killed it, but they have no number two. Justin talked about it. There is nobody else there. Will Fuller is that perfect number two. The guy is a speed man. He can bust out for 40, 50 yards, and Aaron Rodgers, we know, can throw those Hail Marys. So Devonta Adams is eating all day, getting 10 catches for 120 yards like he normally does, and Will Fuller catches 4 passes for 83 yards and a touchdown. You can see it right now, and the Packers are going to the Super Bowl next year or the NFC Championship to rematch Tom Brady and the guys. Except now – go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe. No, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, except now the Packers have weapons, and the Bucs lost a couple. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I still think that he finds a way to get to the Bucs. The guy wants to win, and I don't think he was dying to go back to Houston after everything that happened with his buddies Hopkins and Watson. I mean, I don't know. I don't see him saying, "Oh yeah, sure, I'm going to re-sign for 5 years," when Watson's over here telling him, "Hey man, I'm leaving the first chance I can."
Yeah, and they're not going to franchise tag Will Fuller.
No, hell no.
I mean, and to piggyback off of what Joe said too, earlier in the season before the trade deadline, the Green Bay Packers were in trade talks to acquire Will Fuller. So, I mean, they were interested in him. They said they loved the way he played. I mean, you could just see it come to fruition here in the offseason. So,
Yeah, and listen, I don't know how much of those steroids or whatever he was taking, PEDs, whatever. I don't know how much that had to do with improving his game. I just know that he didn't get hurt, right?
well,
And
for
I
Barry
think
Bonds, it was 756 home runs.
listen, baseball and football is kind of a different thing. Like,
I'm
sure,
just
it
kidding,
makes you
dude.
I get it. Listen, it makes him faster and this and that. But listen, Will Fuller's biggest thing is that he could never stay healthy. When he was healthy, he would produce. I didn't see anything different. He didn't look like a different animal. He wasn't beating guys by an extra second. He's always beat guys. It's just every time in the third quarter he would pull up with his hamstring and he'd have to leave the game. That didn't happen last year. So I don't know. We'll see.
Let me tell you something. Answer these questions and see where it belongs. You already stated Will Fuller does not need a lot of catches to produce, right? Who doesn't throw a lot, needs a wide receiver, and is a good team? The Ravens. There we go. That's where I think the fit can get in.
What's the difference between him and Brown? Like, and the grand aspect, Fuller's better.
Hollywood is obviously not a number one anywhere. I don't think he's good, but maybe he has the juju issue where if he can have the attention off of him, then he can highlight his speed. Where Will Fuller doesn't need the ball a lot, so get him where Lamar Jackson, probably who can't throw well at all, let him do the work after catch.
That's the problem is that Marquise Brown has consistently gotten open, but Lamar Jackson just doesn't hit him. Why the hell would Will Fuller want to say, okay, I'll do it on the other side of the field? I don't know.
He's bigger and better in my mind.
He is bigger and better. I agree. He's better than Marquise Brown, but they're very similar talent in the sense that they're going to burn you, and you need to be able to throw them the ball. Which one can do that, Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson? I don't trust Lamar Jackson to do that. If I'm going to get Lamar Jackson a free agent, I'm going to probably get him a Marvin Jones Jr., a big target, someone that's not known for, Marvin Jones does get those deep balls, but he's also just a bigger target, so that's what I'm looking for a guy like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, let's say the Patriots do kind of retool and they don't want to bring in a Kenny Golladay or a Juju or a Chris Godwin and spend a lot of money on a 5-year contract. I could see them bringing in a guy like Will Fuller. They have to do something at quarterback, right? Like, and we speculate, bring in a Wentz, bring in a Garoppolo, whatever the case is. Then you draft that tight end with that number 15 pick overall. What's his name? Have you guys, that guy coming out of college, the beast tight end? He's like a monster. Forget his name. But you do something like that with that 15th overall pick, and then you got an offense. And I think their defense is already still solid. They have a bunch of guys coming back who sat out 2020. So they could still be a good team if they just fix the offense,
Yeah.
So I could see Wolf, and we know Belichick. I don't know if it was Brady or Belichick who brings in like damaged goods. Like they brought in Antonio Brown. They brought in Josh Gordon. So maybe they want to bring it. I could see Belichick doing something like that. Getting Will Fuller at a discount.
Gabe, what does your boy say about Will Fuller for his contract? I'm kind of curious.
Oh, I don't even have Will Fuller up. I can look it up really quick though.
Yeah, look at that, Gabe. So are there any other names on this list where you guys that pop out to you guys that you see like, oh, I would love to see this guy on this team?
Nah, they're pretty mediocre. If they go somewhere, they go somewhere.
Are the Raiders giving up on Nelson Aguilar? I mean, that guy kind of blew up for them. I was kind of assuming the whole time that he was just going to be re-signed over there.
I think he's going to stay.
No, he went off on the team, and so they're probably.
Oh, that's right. He cussed everybody out and said you guys suck.
Yeah,
did he?
In the locker room, yeah.
Aguilar, despite his great season, I think he's always going to be,
big talk for a guy.
He's going to skate high on those contracts for the next couple of years. Play with like the Jets.
Yeah.
On the low
What about T.Y. Hilton? Do you guys think he stays in Indianapolis? He goes somewhere to compete? Is he even is he going to help a team? Like if he goes to the Packers, is he going to help them? Or is he? You guys think he's done?
I would like to see him as a cheap pickup for the Packers. I know that. I mean, every wide receiver sounds good in the Packers just because they need one. But Ty is cheap, old. He knows the NFL inside and out. He's been a veteran a long time. He's not going to demand the ball. It just seems like a good wide receiver to fill in as needed for a team, and that's the Packers.
Will Fuller's
Nice.
$12.5 million.
Yeah, Jacob. I don't think he's projected more than Corey Davis, right? He's number
Interesting.
4. I
mean, to be honest, I don't know how serious the NFL like
takes the PEDs.
teams take that. You know, like obviously if you're doing it, you can't play. You're suspended, whatever the case is. But isn't he suspended going into the year too?
No. It was the last 4 games of the season. That was it, or 6 games.
Actually,
whatever
I think
it was.
he is suspended for at least a game or 2 going into next season.
I thought they did it so that it was.
I thought it was. I think it's one game.
Where it was the entire rest of the season, but nothing more. It was 6 games, and I can't remember when he got suspended.
Yeah.
But I know that he said he's looking to putting it all behind him in 2021. So I don't know. But
yeah, no, I mean maybe you're right, man. Maybe I'm underestimating him. But no, I mean,
it will carry over into the first game of the season. But it's one game.
Yeah, but that's one game because he was killing it. And look, just you can't. There's certain things that the PEDs don't help. You know, they can't help you catch the ball like that. I mean, he's still very talented, and he was doing great when he wasn't injured before that.
And listen to what he said, too. He handled it like a complete man. I take full responsibility. This is on me. I let the team down. It wasn't like, dude, I didn't know. I went to go.
He didn't blame the trainer or something. Yeah.
No, he took responsibility. He said, dude, I just want to play. You know, I did something I shouldn't have done.
Healthy,
yeah. I don't think teams are – it's different, man. They'll give guys like Kareem Hunt a chance even after what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I get – and if you think about it, stuff that Kareem Hunt, Antonio Brown did are way worse. Like,
way worse.
In the big scope of things, yeah. All right, well, if we have no more other thoughts on these wide receivers, that's going to do it for this episode of the First Round Fantasy Podcast. We're going to do one of these for running backs and for quarterbacks. I don't know if tight ends require a whole video like this. There's not a lot of – Hunter Henry's a free agent, but there's not a lot of tight end speculation. But we'll definitely do one for running backs and quarterbacks. We'll look out for that next video. We're going to do a mock draft here at some point during the offseason, so keep an eye out for that. Again, I am Jacob, and that's Gabe, Joe, and Justin. Thank you guys for joining me. We'll see you all next time.
Yep.